What if I told you that deep inside an ancient Egyptian temple, hidden beneath stone corridors, there is a carving that some people believe shows an electric light bulb, thousands of years before Thomas Edison, before power stations, before wires, before modern electricity was even supposed to exist. A strange glowing shape, held by ancient priests, a serpent trapped inside what looks like a glass tube, a cable-like line stretching behind it, and a pillar beneath it, almost like a support stand. To some people, this is not mythology. It is evidence that the ancient Egyptians may have discovered electric light and used it inside their temples long before the modern world. But if that is true, then why have we found no wires, no generators, no lamps, no electrical machines? And if it is not true, then why does this ancient carving look so shockingly familiar? Tonight, we investigate one of the most controversial images in ancient Egyptian history, the Dendera Light. Ancient technology, or one of the greatest misunderstandings in archaeology? This is History Investigator. To understand the mystery, we have to travel to Upper Egypt, to a place called Dendera. Here stands one of the best preserved temple complexes in all of Egypt, the Temple of Hathor. Hathor was one of the most important goddesses in ancient Egyptian religion. She was connected with love, music, motherhood, joy, beauty, and the sky. Her temple at Dendera is covered with images, symbols, inscriptions, astronomical scenes, sacred rooms, and hidden chambers. It is not just a building. It is a stone encyclopedia of Egyptian belief. But deep inside the temple, in a crypt beneath the main structure, there are reliefs that have captured the imagination of millions. These carvings show large oval shapes with serpents inside them. At one end, the serpent appears to emerge from a lotus flower. Underneath the oval shape stands a djed pillar, a sacred symbol associated with stability. Nearby, human figures appear to hold or support the mysterious object. And when modern eyes look at it, they see something impossible. A light bulb, not a small candle, not a torch, not an oil lamp, but something that looks like an electric bulb, complete with a glowing filament inside. That is where the legend begins. Supporters of the ancient electricity theory believe the Dendera reliefs are not symbolic at all. They believe the carvings show a real technological device. In their interpretation, the oval shape is a glass bulb. The serpent inside is the glowing filament. The lotus flower is the socket. The djed pillar is an electrical insulator. And the line extending behind the scene could represent a cable. To them, this is not a religious image. It is a technical diagram. And they ask one simple question. How did the ancient Egyptians light the dark interiors of their temples? This question seems powerful, because many Egyptian tombs and temple chambers are covered with beautiful paintings and detailed carvings. Some are found in dark rooms, far from natural sunlight. So how were ancient artists able to work in such darkness? The normal answer is simple: oil lamps, torches, and reflected sunlight. But supporters of the Dendera light theory say that answer has a problem. Torches create smoke, oil lamps produce soot, and if workers used them for long periods inside closed chambers, shouldn't the ceilings and walls be blackened? In some places, there is surprisingly little soot. So the theory claims maybe the Egyptians used something cleaner, something brighter, something electric. And this is where the story connects to another famous mystery: the Baghdad Battery. The Baghdad Battery was a clay jar containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod. When recreated with an acidic liquid, it can produce a small electrical current. So some researchers and alternative historians asked, What if ancient people knew how to create electricity? What if they used primitive batteries? What if Egypt had its own version of electrical technology? If a battery could create a current, and if a bulb-like device existed, then maybe, just maybe, the Dendera Light was real. It is a powerful idea. Ancient priests walking through dark stone corridors, carrying glowing lamps, lighting sacred chambers without smoke, performing rituals with technology that looked like magic. It sounds cinematic, it sounds mysterious, and it fits perfectly with the feeling many people have when they look at Egypt. Because ancient Egypt already feels impossible. The pyramids, the temples, the obelisks, the astronomy, the mathematics, the precision, the scale. So when people see a carving that resembles a modern light bulb, they wonder, what else did the ancient Egyptians know? But now, we have to slow down, because archaeology does not work by resemblance alone. Just because something looks familiar to us does not mean it meant the same thing to the people who created it. And this is the key to the Dendera mystery. Mainstream Egyptologists do not interpret the relief as a light bulb. They interpret it as a religious and mythological scene. The serpent inside the oval form is usually understood as Harsamtus, a form of Horus, emerging from a lotus flower. In ancient Egyptian symbolism, the lotus was strongly connected with creation, rebirth, and the rising sun. Every morning, the lotus opens. Every night, it closes. So to the Egyptians, it became a symbol of cosmic renewal. The snake emerging from the lotus can represent divine life, solar energy, and the birth of light itself. Not electrical light, sacred light. The djed pillar beneath the shape is also not an insulator in the Egyptian reading. It is a symbol of stability, endurance, and divine order. In other words, what modern viewers see as a machine, Egyptologists see as a religious image about creation, a serpent, born from a lotus, supported by stability, inside a sacred cosmic form. That may sound strange to us, but to the ancient Egyptians, this language of symbols was normal. Their temples were not decorated like modern instruction manuals. They were decorated like sacred maps. A single image could combine mythology, astronomy, ritual, theology, and royal power. So the Dendera relief may not be asking us to understand engineering. It may be asking us to understand Egyptian religion, and the inscriptions around the scene support that view. They do not describe wires. They do not describe current. They do not describe glass bulbs. They do not describe electric light. They speak in the language of gods, birth, creation, and divine power. This is why most Egyptologists reject the electric light theory. But the mystery does not end there, because even if the carving is religious, the question about temple lighting is still interesting. How did ancient Egyptians work in dark spaces? The most accepted answer is a combination of techniques. Workers could use oil lamps. They could use controlled flames. They could reflect sunlight using polished metal mirrors. And many carvings were made in places that were not always completely dark during construction. Also, the absence of heavy soot is not necessarily proof of electricity. Ancient lamps could be designed to burn cleaner. Surfaces could be cleaned. Ventilation could exist. And in many ancient sites, soot has actually been found. So the argument is not as strong as it first appears. Then there is another problem for the electric theory. If the Egyptians had electric lighting, where is the equipment? Where are the wires? Where are the switches? Where are the remains of glass bulbs? Where are the generators? Where are the batteries? Where are the workshops? Where are the tools used to manufacture such devices? Ancient Egypt left behind an enormous amount of material culture. We have jewelry, tools, boats, mummies. scrolls, statues, furniture, medical texts, mathematical texts, temple inscriptions, and thousands of artifacts. But we don't have a confirmed ancient Egyptian electrical system, and this matters. A technology as useful as electric light would not appear in only one symbolic carving, and then vanish completely. It would leave a trail. It would change architecture. It would change workshops. It would change ritual equipment. It would change daily life. But so far, that trail has not been found. This does not mean the ancient Egyptians were primitive. Far from it. They were extraordinary engineers, artists, astronomers, stone workers, architects, and organizers. But their greatness does not require hidden electricity. Sometimes, the real achievement is even more impressive. They created monuments that still survive thousands of years later, using the tools, knowledge, and religious vision of their own world. And maybe that is the real danger of the Dendera Light theory. When we force a modern technological explanation onto an ancient symbol, we may accidentally miss the intelligence of the people who made it. Not because they were less advanced, but because they thought differently. They did not separate science, religion, art, and astronomy the way we do today. For them, the rising sun was not just a physical event. It was a divine rebirth. The lotus was not just a flower. It was a symbol of creation. The serpent was not just an animal. It was a cosmic force. The temple was not just a building. It was a living connection between earth and the gods. So when we look at the Dendera relief and say, "That looks like a light bulb," we may be seeing ourselves more than we are seeing ancient Egypt. But still, there is a reason this mystery refuses to disappear. Because the image is strange. It does look familiar. It does resemble something modern. And once you see the light bulb shape, it is almost impossible to unsee it. That is the power of this carving. It sits at the edge between two worlds. On one side, archaeology, texts, symbols, context, religion, the careful work of decoding an ancient culture. On the other side, imagination, possibility, lost technology, the feeling that history may be hiding something from us. And maybe that is why the Dendera Light became famous, not because it proves ancient electricity, but because it reveals something about us. We want the past to be mysterious. We want ancient civilizations to surprise us. We want to believe that knowledge can be lost, buried, and rediscovered. And sometimes, that is true. History is full of forgotten inventions, lost techniques, and ancient achievements that modern people underestimated. Roman concrete could survive for centuries. Greek engineers built complex mechanical devices. Ancient navigators crossed oceans with stars and signs. Egyptian architects aligned temples with the heavens. So we should never laugh at the idea that ancient people were brilliant. They were. But brilliance is not the same as electricity, and mystery is not the same as proof. The Dendera Light remains powerful because it forces us to ask two questions at the same time. First, could ancient civilizations have known more than we think? And second, are we sometimes so desperate to find modern technology in the past that we ignore what ancient people were actually trying to say? The answer may be uncomfortable. The Dendera relief probably does not show an electric lamp. It most likely shows a sacred mythological scene, a serpent form of divine power emerging from a lotus, a symbol of creation, rebirth, and sacred light. But that does not make it boring. In fact, it may make it even more fascinating. Because instead of showing us a hidden machine, it shows us the mind of an ancient civilization. A civilization that saw the universe as alive. A civilization that carved its beliefs into stone. A civilization that turned temples into maps of creation itself. So was the Dendera Light an ancient electric bulb? Probably not. But was it a symbol of light? Absolutely. Not the kind of light that comes from wires, but the kind that comes from myth, from ritual, from the rising sun, and from the human need to explain the unknown. And maybe that is the final twist. The Dendera Light was never evidence of electricity. It was evidence of something even older, the human obsession with light itself, the light that defeats darkness, the light that creates life, the light that connects earth to the heavens, a light carved in stone, still glowing in our imagination, thousands of years later. And that is why this mystery survives. Because sometimes, history does not hide machines, it hides meanings. And the hardest thing to uncover is not the artifact itself, but the mind that created it. This was the mystery of the Dendera Light, ancient electricity or sacred symbol. You decide. If you enjoyed this investigation, subscribe to History Investigator, where we uncover the mysteries of the ancient world, one forgotten clue at a time.